Hello, I'm Chris and you are watching Tabletop Gaming Magazine. We are here today taking a first look at Escape From Undergarden, an adventure by JVC Parry. Now, this is a first look. It is not a comprehensive review, but it gives you a bit of a taste of what you can find in this delicious little book, and it gives you some of my first impressions of having a look through. Also, some of the artwork is still provisional, so I won't be showing all of it to you. I believe it's coming to Kickstarter later this month. Before we open it up, what is Escape From Undergarden? Well, it's two things. First of all, it's a pre-written adventure module for roleplay gaming in 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. And an adventure model means it's designed if you are the DM or the GM of a group of players. This enables you to pull this out without having too much pre-planning or pre-thought and have a ready-made adventure that will captivate, interest, challenge your players, and then you can just have fun dealing with the interactions that they have with the game without having to spend hours and hours planning it yourself. The adventure is system neutral, so it's designed to fit into any game that you currently have running, any kind of fantasy world that you want to fit it into. And the game fits into 3 different movements. First of all, you come to terms with hunters overrunning the village, then you confront some druids of the deep root ring, and then finally you explore the prison of Undergarden, a prison that the book describes as deadly as it is beautiful. Let's have a look inside. So I'll show you some shots so that you can have a bit of a taste of the artwork and the page layout. And it's nicely laid out. I particularly like these page markers in each corner. And as you go through, you've got these pink boxes, which I think are very helpful, especially as someone who I personally run a lot of tabletop games, and it's quite helpful to have something that you can see. This is the thing that I read out to the players that gives them a taste of the flavour. I'm going to give you a brief overview of the game first, just for these few minutes, and then I'll have a few spoilers. So that's the point that you need to stop watching if you don't want to find out what happens, but probably just to give you a little bit more of an idea of what you're getting into if you pick up this book. So the adventure model is written for a party of 4 to 6 players at 5th level, and by the end of the adventure they should reach 8th level. The idea is that players slowly find their way into the Undergarden, at which point they discover it is easier to get in than it is to get out, and there's a variety of puzzles that they need to solve to get out through that. So you've got 3 chapters. You've got the missing sister, the deep root ring, and the Undergarden, and I'll have a little bit of a look at those in a second with you. But I also just want to tell you, in that more broad terms, some of the cool things that you get in here. And there's one particular one that I love. Appendix D, jumping right to the end. Okay, we've got a handout here. We've got a beautiful kind of weathered paper thing that you could photocopy, or I mean, what I've done with these sort of things in the past is I've dribbled tea all over them and then put them in the oven with some oil on them, and they end up looking 1,000 years old. But these you can chop out and then you can give it to a player and say, you've just found this, and it really crosses that boundary. So the idea that this has been included here by JVC Parry is fantastic. Another thing that you get that I think is pretty cool that JVC Parry's included here is in Appendix C is the Fool's Goldenhart, and it's a short side quest that you can drop in. So if your players have really loved the setting of the Undergarden that you've been playing in, or if you just want to do something as a one-off, as a quick one-shot, it's lovely to have these little things included. And then the final 2 bits that are included, and I seem to have worked backwards through the appendices for some reason. We've got Appendix B and Appendix A, but Appendix B gives you a list of different mushrooms that you can find in the forest. You've got the Blumpkin's Honeystake Violet Waxcap, the Boar Tusk Toadstool, and these all have different effects. So what it's really giving you is some new kind of spells and some environmental challenges that players can interact with, that's specific to the setting but still kind of familiar to anyone who knows 5th edition. And then in Appendix A, we've got the bestiary. We've got the new monsters that are unique to Escape From Undergarden. You're not going to find them anywhere else except in this adventure module. And my favourite's probably Beric the Bear King. an old oversized grizzly bear that lives here. I think what I like about Beric is his insect telepathy. So he's got the ability to swarm and summon insects, but also to command them using limited telepathy. And I actually really love things like that. The slight grey area sometimes, limited telepathy. What does that mean? Does that mean that he can't talk to them, that he can only get some things, or maybe that he can command them but they can misunderstand? I like the room for play that gives the GM. Okay, if you don't want spoilers, stop watching now. Just a reminder, this is Escape From Undergarden by JVC Parry. So now a little bit more of what's actually in each of these things. So the first chapter, you've got the missing sister. So that's when you discover that Sister Mirrin has gone missing from the convent. Let me just read you a bit of the flavour text actually. So this is the kind of thing that as the GM you'd be reading to your players. St. Cardora's convent is a sad sight. It's a cold stone building that looks more like a military outpost than a library. It has only a few barred windows and a single sturdy reinforced door at the top of crumbling stone stairs. A middle-aged dwarven acolyte is tending to a vegetable garden nearby. When she sees you, she approaches carefully and bluntly asks, "Who are you? And what do you want?" And like that, we've got a setting. I want to go up the crumbling stone steps. Okay, I want to open the single reinforced door, and I want to escape knowing why this dwarven acolyte knows who I am or what I'm doing. And as you go through it, and I'm not gonna just tell you the entire adventure. You need to buy this, but you've got the village of Therral. So I'll show you a nice close up of that. But the village of Therral, and I really like the style in that map there as well. And it's got one of those numbered maps that shows you the various areas there are, and it's got that thing. It's not as precise as a hex map of it's exactly this many 100 meters away, but it gives you a flavour of the village so that players know where and how they can explore it. And if you want, you can photocopy that and give them to them, or you can keep it more secret and let them play with that. And so you've got an inn, you've got the Fletcher, which is where arrows are made, the lumber camp, the tannery, the herbalist hut. And once they've explored that and worked out where Mirrin has gone missing, that takes them onto the next section, which is the Deep Root Ring, Chapter 2. In Chapter 2, they're looking for the glistening waterfall or hunting out members of the Deep Root Ring who are religious fanatics who dedicate their lives to tending the forest. And your players are going to need to explore red bark wood as they go through. And again, we've got a map, but we've got a slightly different style here. And this map actually reminds me a little bit of kind of those more traditional, really early adventures that used to be in kind of those earlier editions of D&D. So things like Horror on the Hill, which had a real focus on exploration. So you often wouldn't get a map and would have to put one together yourself. So it's even less precise maybe than that village. But that doesn't mean that you can't. It just gives you the freedom to do what you want with it. And once you find the glistening waterfall, players find themselves at the druids' hideout, where we've got a more traditional kind of square map for the dungeon there. With my favourite area, the D4, is the teleportation circle, and I just immediately think of, if I ever gave players a teleportation circle, how they would immediately be trying to do ridiculous Star Trek kind of things or something, even in a fantasy setting. So you go in there, and that's where you find a little bit more about the story of where that missing acolyte Mirrin has gone. And it's going to lead you through to the Undergarden, which is that forest prison that obviously the whole adventure's named after. And you're going to have to find the keys that the druids have got to get in there. And so that takes us to the Undergarden, that final kind of stage of this adventure. And I'm not going to say too much more about it, but it's a lush demi-plane of its own kind of creation that is easy to get into, but less easy to get out of. And you're given a wild number of different monsters and problems for the players to deal with, and some options for them to get out. I think probably my favourite title in this section is the Rambunctious Satyrs. But again, we've got a. And what I love that JVC Parry's done here is we've actually got all three of the kind of key types of maps here. So we've also got a nice hex map. And as someone who loves cartography and I love maps, I love having that option of playing within the different ones, and that enables a very different style of play for your players. But it doesn't really force your hand either. You can use those as you want. And movement three is definitely the biggest and meatiest part of the game. I could see it lasting you a number of sessions, depending how easily distracted and irritating your players are, if my players are anything to go by. But I think overall you're given a lot of options, a lot of ideas, all wrapped up in a very pretty little package. So this is Escape the Undergarden by JVC Parry, coming to Kickstarter soon. I've been Chris Lowry. You can find me as @CMLowryAuthor all over the internet, and you've been watching Tabletop Gaming Magazine. Please check out Tabletop Gaming Magazine at a newsagent near you for news, reviews and exciting features. Thanks very much.